Hello again. This is Kyla from Hidden Gems Literary Emporium. Today, for our Ask the Author series, we will be interviewing Mr. Bob Perrill, who is the author of this book, which is currently on display here at Hidden Gems, Son of Light, Son of Darkness. Thank you for your time today, Bob.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
We appreciate you for writing, first of all, this book. I like the length of it because it feels good, holding
It
a book.
feels solid, doesn't it?
It does. It feels very solid, and you're a very descriptive writer, and we also love adjectives, so we appreciated that too.
Well, thank you.
So why don't you start by just simply introducing yourself and telling us the inspiration behind this book, Son of Light, Son of Darkness.
Well, my name is Bob Perrill, and I'm a field biologist, been a biologist all my life. And when about 30 years ago, I got into fantasy with some of the role-playing games, actually closer to 40 years ago. And started playing, and then I started doing a lot of reading. And I've always enjoyed, I've had a good imagination. I've always enjoyed imagining myself in different places and doing different things. And so fantasy was just a wonderful outlet. And I started reading a lot of fantasy books. And during one of the role-playing games, I created this little character called Connate. And it was kind of unusual. It went against all the rules of D&D because I combined characters that weren't supposed to exist, but it worked out really well. And I kind of fleshed him out a little bit, but I knew he had a history. And so I wanted to bring that history to life. And that's what really started the emphasis for this particular book.
And that's interesting because, okay, well, a few things that we found to be interesting about the book. One is that the main character, he has a past that he does not know about, right?
Correct.
Because he was just uninformed about who he really was.
Yes.
Right. And I think a lot of people can relate to that too. I was talking to someone who actually reached out to me on Facebook. She was doing some family tree research and stuff like that. And so she was trying to find her roots. And so just like this character, he's on a journey to find his roots, really. There's a particular reason why his roots were hidden from him.
Well, they were hidden because his father is a drow, and the drow are greatly feared by the elven community. And so his mother was afraid that if the elven community where they lived learned that his father was a drow, that they would both be kicked out of the community. And so she had that fear, not so much for herself, but more for her son.
Right. And so the types of different characters in this book is also very interesting. Can you explain the difference between an elven and a drow?
Okay. Many thousands of years ago, drow used to be elves. And there was a great war because part of the elves wanted to control and dominate the rest. And so they created a war, but they lost due to the elves getting humans and others involved in the war. And they pushed this section of elves down into the caverns. And so they traveled down into the deep caverns just to escape being annihilated. And by doing so, they formed their own community. And over the years, they changed from the elven look to the drow look, which is a dark skin and white colored hair. They can see extremely well in the dark because they live in the dark all the time. And their culture still hates the elves because the elves drove them down into the caverns to begin with. And so they're closely related, but they used to be one people, but now the drow has split off, but they still have this desire to make the elves, the surface elves, pay for for their lot in the Underdark.
That's interesting. And Raymond and I, we love, and Truth, that's our son, we love books that have historical context. So as you're reading this book, you can find things where it'll remind you of certain things or people or groups of people in history that have been through this same kind of journey. Do you like history?
Do what?
Do you like history?
I like history to a certain extent. Certain parts of history I like much better than others.
Okay. But you would say that, would you say that fantasy is your favorite genre?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Okay, so let's talk about the process of making this book. How long did it take you to write this?
Oh, I'm embarrassed. I
Don't
really
be.
started I started about 25 years ago.
Wow.
And I wrote a little bit on it and then put it aside because my jobs changed a little bit in there. And I was a field biologist, and so I had some extra time, and so I was able to write on it a little bit. And then I went to work for the University of Arizona, and that was pretty much a full-time job. And so learning the new work and so forth, I kind of put the book aside and let it just sit for a while. And then when I retired in 2010 from the University of Arizona, then I had some extra time and I was working with it, and I got my brother interested in it. He was kind of helping me edit. I asked him, is this worth continuing on? Should I just dump it or should I continue? And he said, yeah, go ahead and continue. He really wanted me to. So I was working with it, and then along came COVID, which was nasty for so many people. Put people out of work, and people were, really sick and so forth. But I was no longer able to volunteer like I was volunteering at Swarr National Park. And so I had all this extra time on my hands. And so I channeled that into finishing up the book and then finding an agent and then working at getting it actually published.
And some people would say 25 years is a long time, but I would say that there's 25 years worth of experience, things that you go through in your life, 25 years of love that went into this book.
Yes.
And also people promote the same book for that amount of time and are very successful. So thank you for sharing that. So I want to talk about the names of the characters. How did you come up with these cool names?
Oh boy, I made a list of names. I sat down and just started thinking about names and wrote down and made a really long list of names. And then at work at the university, I was doing a bibliography of people who were concerned with fungal diseases and so forth. And it's amazing some of the names of some of the people. Many were foreign, but some were not. And I was able to take those names and adjust a few letters and come up with a really large complex of names. And so I've got all that on the computer. And if I need a name, I just go to my list and run down and try to get one that fits the particular character that I'm dealing with.
That's quite interesting too. So a lot of these names probably have roots in different countries.
Some of them do, yes.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. And the cover is pretty cool too. It actually looks like a video game cover.
Yeah, I think they did a good job. The first two covers they showed me didn't really fit the character, but that one fit pretty well.
Yeah.
He's got a dagger in one hand and a pouch in the other, which is the only weapons that he had ever used until all of a sudden he learned he's half Drow, and then he has to learn how to cope with that society.
Right. Another thing that I like about this book is that there is, where is it? A map.
Ah, I've got a couple maps right at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
and then another map about 2/3 the way through the book.
Mm-hmm. And so tell us about that. Who drew the maps? Why did you include the maps in this book?
I drew the maps,
Really? Did a good
but
job.
they enhanced it. The agent was able to enhance it, but I drew the maps and showed where the forests were, the roads, and the streams, and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
And um, that was partly my brother. My brother said that when talking about people traveling in different areas, it's really good to have a visual on it. And so I did two maps at the beginning, a large scale map that shows a lot of area, and then a narrow scale or small scale map that shows just a couple towns where a lot of the activity really goes on at the beginning of the book. And then before they actually get to the underground Drow city of Ribbonstone, then there's another map showing that particular city and how the different houses line up in the areas. So it was able to visualize what you're actually reading.
And as a reader, that's really helpful because you tend to flip back to the map when certain things are happening,
Yes.
like you said, so you can get a visual of what's going on. So I thought that was really cool.
Good.
Another thing that I love, this is just me being a reader, I love a good table of contents. And so the titles of your chapters are pretty cool. I mean, it kind of makes you want to just go to that chapter and see, like, ooh, transformation, what's going on over there? But so when you were writing this book, what was your process? Did you just start writing it? Did you have an outline? Did you start with the chapter list? What did you do?
I knew the beginning and I knew the end. And I was trying to figure out how he was going to get from point A to point B. And so I came up with a very rough outline, extremely rough. And then I just sat down and started writing, and I didn't write it all the way through. I wrote different sections, the beginning and the end, and some places in the middle, and then I stuck it all together, and it seemed to fit.
This seems like a book that where you want to know what he's going to do in his life. Is this going to be a standalone, or will there be more?
I've had several people ask for a sequel. The agent, two or three friends that I have that have definitely asked for a sequel, and it's a possibility. I've certainly got the beginning and the end on that, and I don't have the middle yet, but I'll work on it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a fun character, and I think he deserves a little more attention.
Yes. I think it's just a fun story. And like I said, it reminds us a lot about history. And you really are a great writer. That it's so there's so many adjectives, and it makes it easy for the reader to visualize the who, the when, the where, the what, the how, because of the way that you write it. Have you always been a writer, or was that something that you came into at a certain point in your life?
Basically, I came into it at a certain point. I did try to do some writing in high school, and I did a little bit in college, got in the newspaper there, but then I kind of got away from it. And I didn't really start writing until I started doing some fantasy games. And then I created a couple of games and thought, this is fun. So then it went on from there. Then I started reading a lot of fantasy books, and that kind of triggered, oh, I think I could write something just as good as this. So I gave it a shot, and this is what I came up with.
This could also be a cool video game.
I'd like to see it a movie, but
I was going to say that also. A movie as well, yes. Very cool. Why did you call it Son of Light, Son of Darkness? And did you come up with that title before, during, or after you finished the book?
Pretty much after the book was done.
Okay.
Son of Light refers to the son of a sylvan elf on the surface. And Son of Darkness refers to the Drow father, which is from the deep caverns where they never see the light of day. And so Son of Light, Son of Darkness, and then Drow Heritage Unleashed, his Drow heritage, which he knew nothing about. He has to develop it completely. And he finally, at the very end, he almost becomes Drow in his mindset for just a moment anyway.
You just flip open to a page and I'll let you know what page it is. And I'm just going to read a random paragraph and then we can talk about it.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Boop. So this is so funny. I flipped open to the first page of chapter 16, which is entitled First Contact. So why don't we read okay. Why don't we read okay, let's take turns reading because this paragraph is a little long, but this is cool. Okay, I'm gonna start where it says Dradamus peered.
Okay.
Okay. Dradamus peered around the corner before taking a step into the new passageway. He turned and started to move off to his right, then stopped. Two drow silently descended from above, using the drow innate levitation spell. They had been waiting behind rocky protrusions near the ceiling. Dradamus saw them the instant they appeared, well before they reached the passage floor. An almost inaudible hiss was the only indication his two long swords had left their scabbards. He stepped to one side, keeping both descending drow in front of him. Okay, why don't you finish that paragraph?
He waited as the two floated to the floor. One drow with a dirk and a long sword stepped directly forward. The other, holding two short swords, slipped sideways, but Dradamus stood with a rocky outcrop protecting that side. The two moved as one, swords quickly cutting in from three different directions. Dradamus easily slapped the long sword aside, and his other blade kept the other drow's swords at bay. From the hidden safety of the side passage, Connate watched his father block and parry the thrusts and cuts from his two attackers. Not giving away his superior swordsmanship, Dradamus fell into a routine of constant defense. Several times his swords appeared slow, deflecting the opponent's weapons at the last possible moment. But Connate knew from discussions with his during training with his father was baiting the two drow, allowing them to build a false sense of self-confidence.
Okay, so let's talk about that scene a little bit. Tell us your synopsis of what's going on, and then I'm gonna ask you another question.
Okay, this is the first time that they have been in a part of the Underdark where they could possibly be meeting another drow. And these are two drow that are waiting the story before that tells you why they're doing that. But they're waiting to attack a traveler in order to obtain an object that they can take back to their home city. And so there's actually more than just those two drow involved. But when Dradamus, anytime he entered in a new passageway, he always checked before, in front of him, and behind to make sure the area was clear, but it's just part of his nature, being very cautious in an area like that. And so he got this feeling that there was something there. And so he told his son to stay behind in the side passage while he went out into the main passage. And so he was the only one that the other drow were able to see. And so he had then this altercation with him.
And it's important that the father is going on this journey with his son. A lot of
His
times,
son could not survive without it.
wow. Yeah. Because a lot of times characters tend to go on this journey alone.
Yes, but in this case, there's no way that Connate would be able to get into a world he'd never seen before.
Right.
Meeting creatures he'd never met before. He couldn't
Right.
even imagine some of the creatures that he met down there.
Mm-hmm.
And yet his father is very comfortable moving through that area. And so his father has to train him from the beginning. Like I said, he'd never held a weapon in his hands. And yet Drow society, you need weapons all the time to survive. And so he had to learn everything from scratch, like he'd been born brand new into that society.
What would you say is your personal favorite scene in this book?
Oh boy. I think one of my favorite scenes is when he meets the Tarkin cat and gets to know the Tarkin cat. It just, I love cats, and there just had to be a cat in there somewhere. And so the Tarkin cat is much more than a regular cat. And so that whole scene where he gets to know the Tarkin cat and the cat gets to know him, and the interaction between the two, I think that's the beginning of the interaction where they stayed together and traveled together for some time. I think that was probably my favorite scene.
Okay. What would you say? Because even though this is a fantasy book, there are, I mean, we feel there are hidden gems in all books, things that you can take away with you, maybe even carry with you for the rest of your life, lessons. And, you know, especially this main character, he learns many things, traverses through many lands, goes on a physical journey, but also, you know, a spiritual and emotional journey, finding out who he truly is. So for readers who read this book, what would you say would be one takeaway that you hope they receive from it?
First of all, never stop learning, and being aware of your surroundings and always picking up and learning from that. But being confronted with situations that make you test your mettle, test who you really are and what you believe and what you want to believe. And you may waver, you may have to waver from your core values, but you always have to come back to your core values of life.
Yes, I agree with that. And we were also actually, I was speaking with another author. We were talking about the same thing, the importance of character, having morals and values, raising your children to have certain values that they take with them throughout their life. And, you know, a lot of people go through a similar journey, maybe not obviously the exact same, but a journey to find out who they are. Maybe they grew up thinking they were one thing, or they grew up not knowing certain people in their family, and then they find things out. As they get older, they start asking more questions. And so they kind of go on a search for
They
who they
do.
are. It happens a lot.
It happens more than we think. And it can be subtle or it can be a very dramatic change. But we're all learning more about ourselves all the time.
That's right. They say you're never too old to learn something new.
I hope not, because I'm getting up there.
Right? No, and I agree. Or and you're never too young and you're never too old to learn something new.
Right.
Yeah. Because learning is fluid.
Keeps your brain active for one thing.
Exactly. And I would even argue your body too, because the mind affects the body.
Right. Right.
Where can people connect with you and find out more about you and your book?
I do have a Facebook page.
Okay.
Eventually, I think I'm going to have a web page. It's not up and running yet, but hopefully in the next few weeks, I'll have a web page. And so they can find me that way.
Okay. And they can also, of course, come here to Hidden Gems Literary Emporium. We're located at 55B Morris Street in New Brunswick, New Jersey, and we have Son of Light, Son of Darkness here on display right now. We also offer virtual appointments and shipping. So if you're interested, if you're watching this and you are interested in this book, give us a call and we would be happy to ship this book to you. Bob, I want to thank you for your time today and
Well,
for
thank you, Kayla.
through all the way from
Tucson, Arizona.
Arizona.
That's not where you're going, but
Yeah. One day, hopefully, because we do 1,000 free book tours where we give away books and educational resources across the country, dare I say world, one day. And so the furthest we've done so far is from New Jersey to Georgia, and it was so much fun. So much fun. So one day we'll have to come out west, and
you'll love the country out here.
we've been
Well,
there
you'll
before.
love it or you'll hate it.
We love Arizona. We've been there before. We did a cross country trip from New Jersey to the furthest we went was, did we make it to Nevada? I don't know, but I know we went through Arizona, Utah, and it was beautiful. I love how the weather is generally great. And when's the last time it snowed out there? I'm just curious.
We got some snow this last winter, probably early January.
Okay.
But it doesn't snow very often. I mean, it may snow a couple times a year. I had 2 inches on my back porch, which was a lot for us.
Wow.
But in the mountains next to Tucson, we have the southernmost ski valley in the country.
Really?
Yep.
That's pretty cool. Have you ever been to New Jersey?
I've not been east of the Mississippi. I'm sorry.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
You're going to have to come out this way. New Brunswick is a great place for music, arts, cultures. There's live shows here almost every night. We're right around the corner from the State Theater, and Gladys Knight is actually coming to perform.
Wow.
Right over there at the State Theater the first weekend in November.
I'd love to hear her.
Literally right there. So yes, thank you for your time today.
Well, thank you very much.
I appreciate you and all that you do for book readers and book lovers everywhere. Please, I encourage everyone to come check out this book, Son of Light, Son of Darkness by Bob Perrill. It's on display here at Hidden Gems. And if you like fantasy and if you like history, this is going to be a good read for you. And if you're looking for a book that has some heft, then this is also a good book. I don't know. I just love books with weight because it just makes you feel good.
But it's a fast read. It's an easy read.
Yes, it is. And it is an easy read. And the way that you wrote it also makes it easy to read because like I said before, it's so descriptive. Every sentence is descriptive. And it's it's easy to imagine what's going on. It's easy to see it, So thank you so much, Bob, for your time.
You're welcome.
And I hope to see you again soon.
I hope so too. Thank you very much, Kyla.
Thank you. Bye-bye.